Here's what I'll do. All right. So I will start the good morning piece. So right now, Allison, good morning again. And Stacy Moore Johannesson. Did I get it right?
Yes.
All right. Well, I want to say welcome to our Rotary District 6250 online or virtual wellness presentation. Stacy Moore Johannesson is with us this morning, and we are really excited and appreciative. Big Rotary District hug to you. You've been with us before, and so we just want to say thank you for your continued service to our community, and then, of course, to the community that you represent for NAMI Wisconsin. And today you're going to be talking to us about balancing life's transitions and work-life harmony. And so we're really excited about that. And with that, I think I'll just turn it right on over to you, Stacey.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me today. I hope everybody's staying warm out there. I know that we'll be sharing this presentation and recording it, so we'll be sharing it after the fact. And for us at NAMI Wisconsin, we really appreciate the partnership and collaboration with the Rotary Clubs of Wisconsin, as we build this. So yes, as I was introduced, my name is Stacy Moore Johannesson, and I'm the Associate Director at NAMI Wisconsin. And today we're going to be discussing balancing life transitions and work-life harmony. So I know this is the second series of presentations we have done with you all, but just wanted to lay a couple basics for you. So I want to talk a little bit about who is NAMI. So NAMI is an acronym, and it stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And we are the nation's largest grassroots nonprofit organization. And we were actually founded right here where I'm coming from today in Madison, Wisconsin in 1979. So we're just a little over 40 years old. Looking at NAMI today, there's over 600 local NAMI affiliates. And then 49 state affiliates. So I come from the state office, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the moment, across the US. And I encourage you, if you haven't, after you watch or listen to this presentation, definitely go on to Find My NAMI and find the closest NAMI to you and get connected with them if you haven't already. So just kind of a little history about how NAMI was formed. So NAMI was actually formed by a group of moms. And as I mentioned, they were living here in Madison, Wisconsin, and they were really unhappy with the services and the support and the resources that their adult sons were receiving, who were living with serious mental illness. Most of their sons, it was a small group of women, their sons were living with schizophrenia. So they were really struggling to find providers to help their adult children. They were struggling for support and resources for themselves as family members, as moms. And really there was a lack of this across the Midwest, across Wisconsin, and across our entire country. So these women band together and formed an advocacy group, and it started at the UW-Madison campus. They started meeting there, and they called it AMI, which means friendship in French. And as this advocacy group grew over time, it became a national organization where we are today, and now is known as NAMI. So some of the people that you see on the screen here, throughout my time at NAMI, I've been with our organization for just going into my 7th year now. I've had the pleasure of getting to know, we refer to them as the NAMI mommies. They are fearless, amazing advocates who are absolutely amazing. And it really just goes to show what a small group of caring people, when they put their dedication and their lived experiences and their life experience, the change that they can make. So it's really a powerful story that I always try to make a point to share. So now, as I've said, NAMI is a national organization. So there are 3 tiers, as I mentioned. So NAMI National is actually located on the East Coast. They're located in Arlington, Virginia. And then they do a lot of work within DC, and they have staff all across the country. And then, as I mentioned, there's 49 state NAMI chapters. And so the one state that didn't have a NAMI was West Virginia. And I actually think that they just were able to form a state NAMI chapter. So that's super exciting that we're now able and working towards covering the state. So that's where I come from. I come from NAMI Wisconsin. We're the state office, but then there's also local NAMI affiliates. So going to the next slide, you can see the map on the right of your screen. These are all of the local NAMI affiliates that we have here in Wisconsin. So as you can see, some of these NAMI affiliates cover one county, like NAMI Dane, NAMI Rock, even NAMI La Crosse County, but some cover multiple counties or regions. So it really just depends. And regardless, all of the NAMIs, whether you're national, you're state level like myself, or you're a local NAMI affiliate, we have the same mission, which is to improve the quality of life of people affected by mental illness and to promote recovery. So that encompasses youth, that encompasses peers. And so a peer is a person who identifies as living with a mental illness, or a family member. I myself am a family member. So you have a family member or a loved one. That could be a close friend of yours, or however you define family, right? Who lives with a mental illness. And let me just point out too that some of our NAMI affiliates, about half have paid staff, but the other half are fully volunteer NAMI affiliates. So a lot of these people have full-time jobs, they're parents, they have multiple jobs. Some of them are retired and help to form their NAMI affiliate. So we work really closely at the state level to help support our local NAMI affiliates. And so taking a closer look, really high level again, but what NAMI offers. So we offer support, education, awareness, and advocacy. So in the realm of support, what NAMIs do is that they provide no cost, peer-led support groups that are offered by trained volunteers. So that's a big part of what we do at the state office. We help to host and pay for these trainings. So our local NAMI affiliates can send their community members to get trained in these support groups to then go back to their community. And I say peer-led too, because as I mentioned, being a peer family member, the people that host these different support groups need to identify in that. So if I was attending a family support group, the facilitators and leaders also identify as family members, and that's the attendance. So those are the two main categories that you'll see for support groups at NAMI, our peers and families, but we also have specialty support groups depending on the local NAMI affiliate and their community and what they offer. So you'll see groups for veterans, for the LGBTQ plus community. Sometimes it's specific. NAMI Southeast Wisconsin, who covers the Milwaukee, Waukesha, and Jefferson area, have a women with bipolar disorder because there is a need for that in their community and a high population that wanted to attend. Some are survivors of suicide. So we definitely encourage you to connect with your local NAMI to find a support group or to help a friend or family member. NAMI also does education. So our education is in the form of classes. So our education programs ensure that individuals get the support and information they need. So our classes are anywhere from a weekend to 6 weeks long, being one class in the evening. Some teach people how to advocate for their children. Some are for peers if they want to learn more about mental illness and medication and how to advocate for themselves. Some are youth, so on and so forth. There's also faith-based programs as well. And then awareness is that third pillar. So we work really hard to promote public education and understanding of mental illness, to provide those supports to our Wisconsin communities, and really work doing presentations like this for schools, for police officers, the criminal justice system, to eliminate that stigma and really better the systems that we have in Wisconsin. And then the last pillar that we have is advocacy. This is what we were founded on, right, at NAMI. So we advocate on all levels of government to improve mental health care in Wisconsin. So just as we kind of wrap up the NAMI 101, I just wanted to show you all some important resources that I'd like to share with you. So specifically from NAMI Wisconsin, I put in the link there. I'm happy to share this PowerPoint afterwards as well, if everybody would like this. Encourage you to find your local NAMI in Wisconsin. We also have our NAMI Wisconsin resource guide that you'll see in the right hand side of the screen with the purple iris flower on there. So this is a resource guide that we edit annually and distribute from the state office, from NAMI Wisconsin, and it's chock full of information from a county-wide directory for every type of mental illness resource, whether that's housing, financial assistance. There's information on all the different mental illnesses, on local NAMIs, how to advocate for yourself, so forth. We also have a quick guide. So it has all of the warm lines throughout the state and the peer run respite centers and different avenues to support people that may be seeking some help. And then the bottom of the screen has some really great resources from NAMI National. There's NAMI National's Navigating a Mental Health Crisis booklet. It's a handful of pages, but it's very, very useful information for anyone that has or is needing to navigate a mental health crisis. And then the NAMI National Resource Directory. So I definitely encourage you to check all of these out and please share them with your community and friends. I also want to share, I had mentioned a bunch of different support groups. We have an online statewide support group platform that we have created called Being Together. And basically it takes all of the local NAMI affiliates who offer different support groups. If they offer them virtually, they can opt to be on this list, and it's located on the NAMI Wisconsin website. So people from all over the state, whether you have a NAMI affiliate area or where you live or not, can access Being Together and attend these support groups virtually. So this is just one of the efforts that we have to really reach all areas of the state. If you do have a NAMI in your area, but maybe they're not offering the support group that you're seeking, this is another great route to take so you can get the support in the community that you're seeking. And then the last resource I want to share, some of you may or may not be familiar with this, but it's the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. So 988, it's new. We've been working on this for a couple years now, but they just rolled it out in 2023. So it used to be the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And the goal behind this was to create a line similar to 911, right? That's a number that everybody knows, but then really rethinking it. So if someone is in a mental health crisis, anywhere in the country, they can pick up the phone and call 988. So there's over 200 crisis centers across the US. And the people who answer these phones, they're real people and they're counselors. And they answer calls, texts, whether it's you that's in a crisis or a family member, or we at NAMI Wisconsin looking for guidance have called them in the past as well. And it actually works similarly to the dispatch system when you call 911. So depending on your zip code, not your physical location, but your zip code, it'll ping you to the tower that's closely related to your zip code. So for example, if you're from central Wisconsin, but have recently moved to Milwaukee, maybe you have a 715 area code and not a Milwaukee area code. So if you were to call, you would tell that dispatcher to please connect you with the Milwaukee-based 988 call center, and they would connect you with that regionally. And again, I encourage you to check this out. NAMI Wisconsin had a seat at the table for the efforts being implemented in the state of Wisconsin for the 988 effort. And this is information that we're trying to get out to the community because it's so vitally important. And this also goes for experiencing suicide, suicidal ideation, of course, mental health, mental illness, but also just substance use as well, and just kind of the general crises that fall into that. So I want to do just a quick mental health and mental illness 101 before we dive into balancing life transitions, so we're all on the same page. You know, a lot of people ask, what is mental health? In the past, gosh, probably 5 or 10 years, we have talked extensively more than we have in the past about mental health and mental illness. And these words can be used interchangeably, and it can be a little confusing. So we always like to give these definitions so we're on the same page. So mental health is defined as the way we think, it's how we feel, it's how we as people relate to others. And so it's on a day-by-day basis, sometimes a week-by-week basis, right? So your mental health can be good or it can be bad. It's really situational and circumstantial. We can all definitely have bad mental health days, but that does not also always mean that we have a mental illness. So it's important to remember that everybody has mental health, but not everybody has mental illness. So then you may be asking yourself, so how does this work? When does mental health become mental illness? So a person diagnosed or self-diagnosed, that's fine as well, with a mental illness, that kind of transition happens when your symptoms are persistent for an extended period of time, typically 6 months. It's different for everybody. When your symptoms and your mental health is distressing and causing significant disruption in your ability to function. So it's a noticeable change in your mood and your personality and your motivation and your daily functions of life for an ongoing period of time. And overall, what happens when that is the case, it decreases the quality of your life. And this is something that's ongoing. So this can be really confusing, and it really is a scale because, as we know, mental illness, there's not a test to determine if you have one and what degree it is. So I always like to remind people in kind of thinking about this. Mental health and mental illness are separate entities, but they work together. So you could be living with a mental illness, but you could be in a period of your life where you're having great mental health and you feel wonderful, and you're at a really good place in your life. But you could also be a person who doesn't have a mental illness, and be experiencing poor mental health due to weather, due to situational circumstances. So it really just depends. And you may hear, at NAMI National, language is always changing and evolving, right? So you just kind of have to stay up to date with that. And so a term that they're using now is mental health conditions, described as mental illness. So you'll hear mental illness and mental health conditions used interchangeably. So it's important to remember that mental illnesses are not caused by personal weakness. They're not caused by lack of character or poor upbringing. Historically, even leading up into the 70s, a lot of people with mental illness and serious mental illness typically looked and blamed the family instead of thinking it as a disease of the brain that can be genetic, or it can be situational or circumstantial. Again, mental illnesses, they are medical conditions. And mental illnesses should be viewed and treated the same as a physical illness. And mental illness is super common. 1 in 5 adults in the US live with a mental illness, and the other 4 out of 5 adults know someone who's living with a mental illness. We all know this, right? It's common. And then I would like to take a moment just to talk that mental illness is treatable. So it's so different depending on the person and your needs, on your body and your experiences, and unfortunately, sometimes your healthcare options and your insurance, right? Or the providers available in your area. There's a lot of challenges. So I don't mean to pose this as an easy journey. It's not, but there are a lot of tools that an individual can use to improve your journey and work towards recovery. That's the goal, is getting back to feeling like yourself and finding a place of recovery. So that could be in the form of counseling and therapy. It could be in the form of different coping skills. It could be social support through support groups and different peer networks, and just general education for yourself. So what we always like to tell people when they're navigating this is focus on education. Learn about your diagnosis or your loved one's diagnosis or your friend's diagnosis to help them. Try to get that basic understanding. Seek support. This looks different, and sometimes this is a hard thing for people to come by, even if they're outwardly supportive to others. Sometimes it feels a little different when it's you. So find support through professional networks, through your peers, through other community groups. If you are in your county, and some people have hesitations about seeing people they know in their support group, that's completely fine. Go to the Being Together website that I shared and join a support group in another county if that is helpful. Understand your healthcare options. So understand your insurance, understand your medication, really advocate for yourself too. Involve your family and friends. This is huge and something that a lot of people don't do. And just remember, the earlier, the better is so important to getting help. And everybody deserves the help and the support that they need. And if you don't know where to start, please, for yourself or a loved one, please call the NAMI Wisconsin office and we can kind of help you with those steps. So now that we've laid just kind of a foundation of NAMI and some resources and some mental illness, mental health 101, I want to kind of transition and talk about the main focus of this presentation today, which is coping with major life transitions. And this is huge, and there's so many different areas that we can think about. So when you think about life transitions, there's a lot, and sometimes it's typically viewed as negative, but that's not always the case. So you can look in the areas of retirement. That can be exciting for a lot of people, but then sometimes they're not sure what to do with their time off, or trying to feel purpose or value. Graduation, that's another one that can also be exciting, but can also be really daunting, right? A job transition, this is huge, for yourself, for a spouse, for a family member, whatever the case may be. Parenthood, that's another huge life transition that I'm sure a lot of people watching this can relate to. Partner separation, so losing a spouse, a significant other, even a friend, a close friend or family member, which kind of, goes into the next one, which is loss. Moving, that's a huge life transition and can be really challenging. There's a lot of people also that moved or were planning to move right around the time of the pandemic, and they felt isolated, really hard to meet people, and really have those social networks that some people need to thrive. Or a medical diagnosis, right? Whether it's a mental illness or a physical illness, or some sort of different life, challenge with that can be really challenging. And please know, this is not all encompassing. There's so many different areas, but we really just try to do our best to kind of quantify. So with some of those life transitions, what we promote at NAMI are some of these suggestions, and just know it doesn't work for everybody. And I do have this information that I shared on the previous slide, this slide, and the next slide on a nice handout that I can send as a follow-up with this presentation as well, that I actually printed off and we have up in our office and on my refrigerator at home. But some suggestions in coping with this, and these are just basics to help yourself and help your overall mental health, are establish and stick to a routine. So if you can, I know it's also tough on the weekends, but try to go to sleep and wake up at a reasonable time. Create a schedule that works for you and really practices into your self-care. And remember, there's some people who thrive on 5-6 hours of sleep, and there's studies now where there are some types of people that need 10 hours of sleep. Everybody's different. So also really listen to your body. It's not the quintessential 7-8 hours like we always thought. Everybody's body is different. Stay hydrated and eat well. It seems really basic, but when you're coping with a life transition, this is probably usually the first thing that falls by the wayside. You're forgetting to eat, you're forgetting to take care of yourself because you're so consumed by this transition, whether it's positive or negative, or a lot of times you're taking care of someone else at this time, right? Who may be struggling. So try to incorporate your greens, try to cook nutritious meals, try to cook something new. If you don't like to cook, try to keep it interesting for yourself if possible. Find a long-term project. So think about other things that you can do to stimulate your mind, to keep yourself happy, a craft, even something simple like reading. Try a new genre of book, maybe that you haven't read before. Develop a new skill, take on an organizational project at home or at the office, or work towards some sort of physical goal that's reasonable for yourself. Find a mental health outlet that benefits you. This isn't for everybody, but therapy, yoga, meditation, support groups, walking, running, YouTube stretches, or workout classes, whatever your abilities are physically, and that you think would help you. Creating a community. So, in all these areas, even through the pandemic or not, sometimes people, when you're coping with a major life transition, you feel isolated. So that's one of the hardest things, is to break that barrier and make those connections with others. So find new social groups, take a class, even at a local community college or a community center. If you're religious, try to tap into some religious organizations. Look into clubs. You're all a part of the Rotary Club. There's a lot of other clubs that you can be a part of to get that sense of community. Volunteer, even once a month, even quarterly. Going to the gym, even, you see some of the same people. Start a walking group, whatever works for you. This is a big one that I always try to do, especially, working in the mental health and mental illness field for the past 7 years, is try to find lightness and humor in each day. And whatever that is for you, watch a funny or cute animal video. If it's stand-up comedy, a funny movie, stream, everybody has a different sense of humor. So just make sure that you're doing that for yourself and smiling each day. And what I always try to do is share that with others. Even if you're in a good place and maybe not coping through a life transition, your coworkers, friends, family, neighbors may be, and you may not be knowing what they're going through. So try to share those things with others. Take control of your daily chores. Again, everybody has a different means with this and standards, and do your best to keep your space clean. Create a wellness toolbox that you can use, you know, to kind of remind yourself when you're feeling down and really having those days that are challenging. Cuddling with your pet. My cat is actually sitting with me on my lap right now as I give this presentation, which is very sweet and soothing. Listen to your favorite music, do some breathing exercises, take a bath or a long shower, you know, read a book, you know, whatever that is for you, and maybe take some time to think about that. And I think the important thing, which is really hard, but just reminding yourself that change is temporary and you'll adjust to this new routine, and find that balance. And sometimes it takes a couple years, right? It's not a quick race. It's a marathon. It's a journey. So taking a look at the next slide here, a few other things we always recommend incorporating each day. Try to get your daily dose of sunlight or fresh air. Today is not the best day to go outside and get fresh air. I think it's like negative 10 degrees here in Madison. But there is some beautiful sunshine. So try to sit by a window, soak it up. Do the best you can here in the Midwest, everybody. Move your body. Even if you have different physical abilities, if you can get up and stretch, that's great. You know, move your arms, move your legs, stretch your neck. And also with that too, I always remind people it's good to get away from the screen time. So while you're doing those stretches, you know, put the phone down, turn away from your laptop, you know, don't look at the TV, and really just try to have that downtime and that personal time for yourself. Connect with others. This can be hard, especially when people are struggling, but you know, try to make a goal for yourself. You know, this week I'm going to reach out to 3 people, whether that's family, friends, coworkers, just to say, hey, thinking about you. How are you doing? Maybe it's, hey, I need some help today, or you know, sharing a news article or just something with them to get a conversation going. And treat yourself kindly with life transitions. You know, you can feel really down and you know, kind of not love yourself as much. So it's important to remember to take care of yourself and your hygiene, because you are important and you do matter. So the second part of this presentation, what I want to focus on is that work-life harmony. And so we like to use this word harmony. Typically, you've heard it as balance, but it was brought to my attention a couple months ago that there really just is no balance. So in life, right? And it's, you know, marriage isn't 50-50, relationships aren't 50-50. How do you find that balance? So the goal should really be to find that harmonious level, and balance looks different for everybody, right? So it's a hard thing to quantify and compare. So I want to talk about a handful of things that we can talk about with work-life harmony and finding the balance for yourself. So just kind of posing this question just to think about for yourself, when you think about work-life harmony and life balance, what are some of your personal values? So not professional, but personal values in life. And what do you do for self-care? And I think it's important to think about these things with this topic. So for me, I'll share some of my personal values in life are building connections with others. That's really important to me, as well as nature. But I also really value security, integrity, and balance, even though I know I said I wasn't going to say that word, but the balance that I know and need and crave for myself, as well as intellectual and cultural growth. That's a big personal value for me as I move through the functions of life. So what I do for self-care, knowing my values, is that I do a lot of gardening. Been really big the past couple of years into the pollinator plants, and I have a vegetable and fruit garden and a lot of perennials, being a newer homeowner. I love hiking and walking and just being outside. It's a very spiritual and important to me. I love cooking. So dinners with family, friends, even myself. Cooked a meal for myself last night. My husband was out of town, so I wanted to do something nice for myself after a busy Monday. And then also creative outlets. I love crafting and interior design and things like that. And then of course, spending time with my inner circle, and traveling and learning about new cultures. So I posed this question to all of you to think about, because all of the things that you've thought about and the things that I just shared should fall into or between one of these categories, right? And I bring this exercise in this chart up because these areas are really key to the work-life harmony. And it's important to take a moment to reflect on what you value as a person, and then ask yourself, Is what I value present in all of these areas of my life? Am I prioritizing these things for myself, for my family, whatever that may look like? And if I'm not prioritizing that self, why? For myself, excuse me, why? And then how can I change that? So looking at the work-life blend, right? So you're looking at relationships. You're looking at work, although I said this is personal. Work is a part of everybody's life at some point or another. Also taking a look at finances, as much as that can cause issues and be sticky. That's a part of that as well. Fun, that's one of the most important things. Spirituality, whatever that means to you, and then health. So I want to look at some statistics on mental illness in the workplace and some support and resources for the workplace to help avoid burnout. Because as we think about this balance, this harmonious balance for yourself, looking at some of these statistics, um, if you're not able to find that balance at home, in the office, in your personal life, it will lead to burnout and it will lead to some poor mental health and depending mental illness. So mental health conditions, mental illness, they're the leading cause of disability across the United States, which is a surprising fact for a lot of people. Untreated mental illness costs the economy nearly $200 billion in lost earnings each year through decreased work performance and productivity. And this is for yourself as a peer, but then also if you're a family member, because you may be needing to take off work to help and support your family as well. 8 out of 10 people with a mental health condition report that shame and stigma prevent them from seeking treatment. And that's something that we really need to change. As I mentioned, the family is also affected. So increasing the use of leave time for family in whatever role that looks like for you, whether you're a parent or you're a daughter like myself who is supporting their mother, who may be going through a crisis or a challenging time, a spouse, a brother, a sister, whatever the case is. 52% of employees say their company does not do enough to promote employee health. And then the overload and interference that can arise between work and life roles have been linked to negative health outcomes, right? That seems obvious, but that could be an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, digestive issues, poor sleep quality, which affects everything in life, and then substance use. So it's really the trickle down effect. And that's really important to keep in mind as well. And we say this a lot with mental health conditions, with mental illness, it's the ripple effect. It really affects everything in your life and a lot of people in your life. And it's the same thing with mental illness, how it starts to affect your physical illness. So let's talk about burnout in the workplace. Our workplaces play a significant role in our lives, right? And some people spend more time currently or previously, if they're retired, whatever the case may be, a lot of times you spend more time with your coworkers than your spouse or your family. And work, again, it really affects your physical and mental well-being in both good and bad ways, because some people really find value and purpose and meaning in their work. And that's important. And everybody should have that to a certain extent, depending on the person. But work can also affect you in some really negative ways too. And, the pandemic really brought out the relationship between work and well-being into a clearer focus for us. And when you're thinking about burnout in our country, it's also important to keep in mind that this looks a little different for everyone and different across the world. It's different in different places of work, different areas, depending what you do, cultural expectations. So for example, in France and different European countries, sometimes they only work 4 or 5 hours a day, and that's their normal. They start at 10 a.m. and they really have a divide that their work does not define them. It's just something they do on the side. Whereas you compare it to maybe Japan, they have a significantly different work ethic. And a lot of times the expectation is to fall into a certain line of work, or sometimes the average work week can be 60 to 80 hours a week, which is debilitating. And just a couple statistics that I want to point out up on the screen. So 76% of US people who work reported at least one symptom of a mental health condition. That's a huge number. 84% said that their workplace conditions had contributed to this, to at least one of their mental health challenges. And then 81% of workers said they will be looking for workplaces that support mental health in the future. And that's really important and a huge change. So I want to talk about, as we continue talking about burnout in the workplace, defining burnout and exactly what that means. So burnout makes it difficult for even the most accomplished, productive person or workers to maintain the expected work output and quality standards, right? You may notice that if you have an employee or a coworker who's typically your fastest employee or your most productive employee, that they're working much slower, slipping, numbers are dropping, kind of whatever that may look like in the field that you're in. That person could also be making more mistakes because they're dealing with some burnout, and ultimately that could lead to the quality of your company or organization having inconsistencies and some really big issues there. So WHO is the World Health Organization, and they define burnout as unmanaged workplace stress that is characterized by three major symptoms. So depleted energy or exhaustion, increase in negativity, mental distance, or cynicism towards the job, and reduced work performance, as we're discussing. And as I've mentioned, this is a huge financial cost to your company. So it kind of makes you pose the question of why would we even let ourselves, or if you're in a place of management or just looking at the culture of our work dynamics here in the United States, why would we even let this happen? And work is evolving, and that's a good thing. Things should change. Some are changing for the better. Some seem to be in a little bit of a struggle transition. But the relationship between employers and employees is changing and skewing more towards workers for the first time in decades. And we really in the US need to continue to talk more about mental health and the importance of that in the workplace, avoiding burnout and supporting each other to help prevent this. So some of you may have seen this. This came out in 2022. And so the US Surgeon General created this whole framework for mental health and mental well-being. And I want to talk briefly about that and the different areas that it encompasses. So the framework for workplace mental health and well-being covers 5 different areas. So it starts being centered on worker voice and equity. So for you as an individual, but to kind of find that harmonious balance and to have that well-being in your place of work, and also at home, really stems from protection of harm. So that's the safety and security of yourself. So that's of your job, and also just your general feeling of your line of work. How safe are you feeling? And there's also connection and community. So the social support and the belonging. Are you feeling supported in your company or organization? Do you feel like you have a purpose? This is the topic, but another big component of this is work-life harmony. So autonomy, flexibility, is that present? What do you need as an employee? Do you need more of this? Do you need less of this? What kind of leadership and management styles help you succeed? And if you are a leader or a manager, how are you helping others succeed? And what flexibility are you giving them? It sounds simple, but mattering at work. I always say it doesn't matter what you do professionally, just as long as you do it well. So dignity for yourself is your job in some extent, in some shred, giving you meaning. Are your coworkers making you feel mattered and important in whatever degree that is? And then last is the opportunity for growth, big and little, right? So this could be additional learning activities. This could be being recognized and accomplishment, employee incentives. But then also on a bigger scale, if you're working your way up through an organization or a company and having the opportunities to do that and feel supported in that. I've been in the nonprofit world for a handful of years. And when I left my last organization I was with, it was really tough. But what the CEO told me, which really stuck with me, is seeing an employee leave to continue their growth means that I did a good job and that you're ready for something new. And that just wanted to share that because that's always stuck with me. So I want to look at harmony this area at the company level. And, really think about this for yourself. And then after this, I'm going to talk about the individual level. So it's looking both at your place of employment or your spouse or your loved one, your friends, family, neighbors. Are they offering these things at the company level? But sometimes they're not. So we're also going to look at things that you can do as an individual to help you with this, to work towards that harmony. So what we do a lot at NAMI Wisconsin through our workplace wellness initiatives and different education is really work with different companies, organizations, entities, agencies, all size shapes that are statewide, to really encourage them to create policies regarding mental health, which in turn reduces burnout. So really, we say you should be supporting your employees by advocating and providing adequate insurance for behavioral health. That's the general term in the healthcare insurance world that they use for mental illness and mental health counseling and so forth. Do you have an EAP? That's an employee assistance program. If so, what resources and support do you offer through that? Do those programs encompass mental health conditions, mental illness, and substance use? And a big thing that I always tell people too, if your company or organization does have an EAP, do your staff and does your team know about it? Do they know what that means and how they can utilize it? Because there's sometimes you have it, but there's a big gap there. So accommodations for people that may have different abilities or different physical disabilities or mental disabilities. So helping people plan in that area with mental health conditions. And do you have policies that support family caregivers in any capacity? So family medical leave, sick time, short-term disability, flexible work schedules for you yourself or a loved one. We always say too, it's not always the case, but it's really best to make it known that sick days or PTO days can be used for therapists, for counseling appointments, for you as an individual, but also for your family member. Like that is your time, and you should be able to use it in that way, and it should be encouraged. Provide management trainings. It could be a presentation like this one, and really have these effective conversations, send emails, talk about it. Update your policies and procedures. Do you have autonomy and flexibility? It's not always the case if you're in a customer service job or a retail position, but what can you do to allow people a little bit more flexibility so they're feeling appreciated? And life needs flexibility. Life is hard. And really lead by example. I think that if you're going to take the initiative to really work towards mental health, mental illness, mental wellness, harmony at the company level, that you in whatever area you're in really need to promote that and kind of talk the talk, walk the walk. Are you taking breaks? Are you taking care of your own mental health? Are you taking care of your physical health? Are you eating lunch? Encourage others to do the same, and they will follow your lead. So as I mentioned, some of you may not be in a position currently where these suggestions that I gave, depending on the field that you're in or where you work, it may not be a part of your company, or it may be in the beginning stages and take a really long time to make these necessary changes to improve the work-life culture. Or unfortunately, those suggestions I gave may never be a part of your company culture. That may just be the situation that you're in. So you may be saying, Stacy, these are great suggestions, but this will unfortunately never happen to me in my line of work. This is out of your control, right? But I would like to provide some tips and tricks for you at the individual level of what you can do to provide that work-life harmony for yourself and as an individual. So this is the biggest one, of course, as a mental health, mental illness advocacy organization, but advocate for yourself. Schedule time to take breaks. Get away from screen time. Take a break, walk away, schedule this to really help de-stress and disconnect for yourself. Kind of going back to what we were saying before, take a coffee break, take a tea break, take a technology break, take a walk, make yourself some food, do whatever you can, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, turn your chair around and just sit and look out the window if you have to, whatever kind of works. This can be really hard for people, but setting boundaries. So set a boundary for ending your workday, either in the office or while working from home. And give your mind a break when it's time to leave and go home and enjoy the things that help your mental well-being. The work is never done. right? So just know that you are important and it can wait, and you can come back to it. And it's a consistent cognitive effort to really create this boundary and work towards it. As we've been talking about walking, standing up, there's articles that came out a handful of years ago that sitting's the new standing. It's hard. Everybody has different abilities too, but even just challenging yourself to get, a small standing desk, stand up and take more breaks. Some people, if they're in the office, put their lunch in the refrigerator, the farthest from where they sit, so they're getting more steps in. Park, a few parking spots away from the door, to get some more steps in, whatever works for you. And one of the best things you can do for yourself is to really create a routine. So in the mornings can be tough, right? So create a positive day for yourself. Listen to a song that makes you happy, or a podcast, or maybe if you have a commute to work, maybe you prefer silence in the morning. Do whatever works best for you. If you're an affirmations person, try some positive affirmations. Give yourself some good coffee or some good tea. Really kind of figure out what works best for you to start your day, and try to do that every day, or start small, start 2 days a week, and then go for 3 days a week for a couple of weeks, and really try to do what works best for you. Evening times, again, sleep is so important, and sleep is probably one of the most trickiest things that we have as part of being a human being, that people and scientists and doctors are still trying to figure out, but routine is key. So really do your best. I struggle with this, but do your best to keep a routine for your sleep. And naps are okay. Some people are nap people, some people are not. I'm a big power napper, and it works for me, and I benefit from that. Yes, she was shaking her head as she is too. But it can be challenging, but figure out what works best for you. And then weekly routines. Again, some of you work from home full time. Some of you are hybrid. I'm hybrid. I'm at home today. I was in the office yesterday. Some of you go into the office or the store, or whatever your place of employment is, every day. But really just try to create a weekly routine for yourself. Keep your workspace clean, declutter, spruce it up when you're maybe feeling a little mentally low or need a little task just to kind of boost yourself. A lot of people have been using happy lamps, different light therapy lamps. I have one at my desk. I think I got it at Amazon. They have them at Target. They have them everywhere. But it just simulates natural light and just helps your brain to wake up a little bit better. And it also helps to combat the different light on a computer screen with your eyes, which is really nice. So do whatever works for you, for your mind and body. A few other things too, finding that harmony at the individual level. This is something I always like to share with people, is box breathing. If you're feeling anxious before a meeting, if you're feeling anxious during a life transition, if you're just feeling anxious in general, it happens to us all, some more than others if you live with generalized anxiety disorder. But we really recommend box breathing. So what you do is you inhale. So you start on the far left side. So you inhale a big deep breath for 4 seconds, and then you hold for 4 seconds, and then you big exhale for 4 seconds, excuse me, and then you pause for 4 seconds. And it's a really simple relaxation technique that can really help with anxiety and return people and your breathing and your heart rate and all those things that are associated with anxiety back to your normal rhythm. I do this before I give presentations, before social situations. Sometimes it's just a nice way to wake up as well, depending on the person. Another tip for yourself is set some realistic deadlines, right? People can be really hard on yourselves, and sometimes you're your own worst critic. So make sure you're not overcommitting, and know your capacity. Take some time to figure out what that is for yourself. A big thing we're doing at NAMI Wisconsin, we've grown significantly. We went from a staff of 7 with 2 part-time people. We now have 11 staff. And so we're taking on a ton of initiatives, and we're really focusing this year on knowing our capacity and being comfortable saying no, because we ourselves, we're not practicing what we preached, and we're experiencing some burnout. And it took a little bit to figure that out. You can't just snap your fingers and know that. So that is our goal that I'll share with you for 20. I'll report back and let you know how that goes when I'm at your conference in April. Take vacation days if you can, even if it's a staycation. Just take some time for yourself. Do what makes you happy. I know there's a lot of financial barriers, so long distance vacation or long time vacations aren't feasible for everybody, but just try to find something that makes you happy. And then last, the other tips that I want to give, we've gone through a majority of these, but really looking at harmony at the individual level, designate your space, set boundaries, eliminate distractions, change your clothes too if you're working from home. This is a big one. I know you want to find the balance of being comfy, but also kind of starting your day and having your brain trigger that you want to start doing something. While working from home, create a schedule for yourself, create breaks. Um, it's interesting because there's studies that people who work remotely and made that transition from in the office full time to remote full time, it's harder for them. They're not taking those lunch breaks. They're working a lot more, where others have really thrived and enjoyed that flexibility. So just being a little bit more cognizant of that, because sometimes you're home by yourself and you don't have that coworker down the hall to talk to, or the random people coming into the office, or the random phone calls coming through, or customers, whatever that may be for you. So really do your best to incorporate that into your day. And that may even be setting things up through your company or organization for Zoom social hours, coffee hours, happy hours, games, just silly fun things that you can do to really change that. So as we near the end of this presentation and wrap up from today, I think the biggest takeaway as we're talking about NAMI, we're talking about mental illness, we're talking about mental health, life transitions, work-life harmony. We really want to change the narrative around all of these things, around mental health conditions. So the biggest takeaways that I would like everybody to have for today are: remember your personal values and practice self-care, whatever that means for you. You matter the most. And really lead by example if you can, with your colleagues, your friends, your family, your neighbors. Talk about it. This is huge. It's a great way to reduce stigma, and to have these conversations and continue to have these conversations about mental health and mental illness. Discuss burnout, discuss mental health, discuss mental illness. Help is available. Again, NAMI is a great resource wherever you are, in Wisconsin and throughout the country as well. And if you don't know where to start, please start with NAMI, and we can definitely help you. And it's okay to ask for your help for yourself, your family, even for an employee. If you notice a coworker that's struggling and you don't know what to do, or a friend, sometimes even just simply asking, I notice your personality seems a little different, or you seem down. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help you? Even just saying, I'm concerned about you. Let's talk. Open those doors. As I said, it's tough for all of us currently. We need to monitor our mental health daily, and in turn, manage mental illness for yourself or family members. Utilize the resources that I provided, and really make it a goal to find your work-life harmony balance as you navigate through life transitions, for yourself as an individual, for whatever hat you wear, as a spouse, as a sibling, as a kid, as a friend, as a neighbor, all of these different hats that we wear all the time, both at home and at the company level. And remember that these changes take time, and it takes practice, and it takes routine, and it takes some self-reflection, and to not be too hard on yourself. The last thing that I just want to share with all of you, two things quick. I'd mentioned NAMI Wisconsin Workplace Wellness. Workplace Wellness, it's an initiative that part of which we're doing here today. We do presentations like this for groups like the Rotary, for employees and employers of all sizes and shapes, for HR teams. There's a link on here. There's a website, a platform that I created. There's a ton of many of those images that you saw today that I had up in this presentation. They're all handouts, so you can print them off. You can send them electronically, put them on your refrigerator, share them with your people. Get the word out there, take a peek and share it. And we also encourage you to get involved with NAMI locally or at the state level. If you haven't, become a member, become a NAMI Wisconsin partner, connect with your local NAMI affiliate. We'd love to hear from you. And again, I really appreciate your time today. And thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that we can all work collectively in Wisconsin, and also as a society here in the United States, to have better resources and coping skills for managing through life transitions and also that work-life harmony and eliminating the stigma of mental illness and promoting mental health. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Stacy. I know I have learned a ton of things here. I so appreciate again you being with us today and then providing this information. I'm sure as well as Allison probably and others who will be listening, but there were lots of things that you were talking about that um I could connect with in my own life and my own goal. Um, and you know, it's interesting because I think I have a question is
Mhm.
that, is it often, do you still find that it's very difficult for people to, be pretty transparent or just to really have those conversations? I mean, mental illness and mental health. I so appreciate the two aspects of the definition that you gave us in the beginning of the presentation in the mental health one-on-one section. And often people have a stereotype where there are stigmas associated with even wanting to talk about it. And I know in my life, I lead, several like small groups and teams of people and things like that. And I try to do what you suggested by leading by example. And having those conversations, noticing or recognizing that maybe today you're not, or my friend or colleague or a family member may not seem like, I'm used to experiencing them. And so
Mhm.
I really appreciated, those aspects. Another thing I think too is some of the questions that I'm glad this was recorded because some of the questions that you probed or posed to us to help us probe within ourselves, about like the values when there are specific things that we identify as values. And then we need to ask ourselves, are these values present? Whether
Mhm.
it's in the day or in our lives. I mean, that's a very important, or those are very important factors that can either lead you closer to harmony with, mental health or illness or mental health in itself, or moving further away. And so I think this was really great. So,
Oh, thank
again,
you.
I know your time is valuable as well. You know, and sharing it with us was really important. And so I just want to say on behalf of our Rotary District 6250 and all the clubs that it's comprised of, thank you so very much.
Oh, you are so welcome. This was great. I'm so happy I'm able to partner with the Rotary districts and give these presentations. And I'll be sending this out as an email. And please feel free to share this PowerPoint presentation. There's so many links in there, and I would love for everybody to be able to have that. Yeah, and I look forward to our continued collaboration. And I'll be presenting in person at the conference in April in Green Bay.
We're
So
looking
maybe I
forward to that. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. So maybe I can meet you in person and other of those who are watching this recording. But thank you again so much for having me, and we appreciate it.